Do you feel like your clients are sabotaging your projects? Let me share a little story. When I won my first 5-figure website deal, I was ecstatic. I was a freelancer by then, and I signed a deal over 13,000 euros for a website for a real estate company that included integrating some third-party APIs. It included integrating some custom development. And I was fired up. I never made 13 grand on a website before. I sold websites for 2,000 to 5,000 beforehand, but 13 grand was amazing. Well, to spill the beans here, turned out that that project took over 2 years. I lost money on the project. And during the delivery, during the work, I felt like the client was actually sabotaging the project. And I learned multiple lessons that I want to share with you in this video on how you can avoid clients, even without having the intention to sabotage your project. I want to make sure that you don't make the mistakes that I made, that you know how to guide your clients through the project so that when you sign a big deal, you make sure that it's actually profitable. And in this video, I want to share the 3 most important lessons that I've learned in the project management of not just that particular example, but tons of projects over the past 7 years. Hey, I am Jan Koch. I am the CEO of Virtual Summit Mastery, and you might know me from hosting the WP Agency Summit, one of the most exciting events in the WordPress space. Now, here's the thing. Without knowing how to properly manage your project and the client expectations and the client communication and everything related to that, you can find yourself too in projects that get delayed for weeks, for months, and sometimes even for years, like I mentioned with that real estate client. And you want to avoid that, of course. You can also find yourself dealing with frustrated clients over and over again because they don't know how the project will going to work. They don't know what to expect during the project. And that is always a recipe for big problems, not just for the client, but also for your agency as a whole, because a lot of mental bandwidth will be taken up by this type of client and this type of project. You'll also find yourself spending hours and hours and hours explaining to your clients why you need them to create content, why they need to be involved in the project. Didn't they hire you to finish everything? And now suddenly you're coming back to them for feedback, for ideas, for content. You know the drill, and that is something that you have to avoid right from the get-go. We'll get into that in a little bit, I promise. But you will also find yourself dealing with frustrated team members who feel like imposters. So maybe if you're just a freelancer, you feel like an imposter from time to time, because during the project, you find yourself making decisions based on assumptions of what the client might want, what the client might like, and not making decisions based on facts, based on documented things that you can actually hold your client accountable to should they change their mind during the project. Those are some of the negative aspects that you will experience, hands down, if you don't have a proper process for client management and for project management in place. But with the right knowledge, you can turn this boat around pretty easily and pretty well. You can find yourself in projects that get completed way quicker than you imagined because you have the right processes in place. You can find yourself in projects that go super smoothly. The clients know exactly why they need to get involved and they are happy to getting involved instead of dragging their feet with sending over content or approving stuff. And you can find yourself with a team that is super engaged in the project because everybody knows their role and everybody has the freedom to make decisions on their realm, in their area of expertise. And you can also, and this is something that is very, very important, is you keep moving forward with the projects constantly. If you have the processes in place I'm about to share with you, you make constant progress. You can keep your clients in the loop every week, for example. And it's just an overall great feeling because you know that you are improving cash flow at the same time. And let's face it, as business owners, cash flow is very, very important to us. Obviously revenue is, but cash flow is the baseline. Without cash flow, your business doesn't exist. So you want to make sure projects are not getting delayed. Clients come back to you because they had a fantastic experience in the projects, and You want to make sure that you can charge per milestone, for example, something that we'll talk about in a minute. But the essence is you need to have the proper processes for client management and project management. And I want to share 3 things with you right now that I learned from my past 7 years of running a WordPress agency, working as a freelancer, then running an agency. I learned these 3 very important lessons amongst many others. So let's dive right into them. So let's talk about client onboarding first. Very, very important process, something that I overlooked for way too long. Definitely had no client onboarding process in place for that real estate project I mentioned. And during the client onboarding, the first thing you do is you set the expectations straight. You set the foundation for the project. For example, you define what communication looks like, what types of communication channels clients can use, how quickly they can expect a response from you, but also the other way around. How quickly can you expect a response from them so that the project doesn't get delayed? Those are some of the basic housekeeping rules that you want to set up during the onboarding process so that you don't find yourself in calls all day, every day, actually taking up way more time than the actual work on the project. You want to avoid that. You want to avoid clients calling you all day, every day. Instead, you want to have them on your preferred channel of communication. And from my experience, email and Slack and stuff works amazing. Ticket systems obviously are a common one. It's up to you. Just make sure that the client knows and that the client respects that directly from the beginning of the project. The second thing you want to really nail in the client onboarding is helping them understand why they want what they want. Most often when I was dealing with clients in the projects, they had this idea of, I need a website that does A, B, C, and D. And then I asked them, okay, but why do you want that? And then, well, I think it's good and I think it's useful and I saw a competitor do this. And then again, drill deeper. Why do you want that? Why is it important for you to have this feature? How does this feature specifically contribute to your bottom line or to the goals you want to achieve with the website? You would be surprised how often clients will hire an agency or a freelancer to build something without fully thinking it through because they lack the expertise. They rely on your skills in this situation. So make sure that before you start any work on the project, you get on the phone, you do a discovery session with them. My friend Lee Matthew Jackson is amazing at explaining that, so watch out for his videos on this channel. And then you make sure that all the requirements are defined, but also you define what does success look like. What is a successful delivery for this specific project? And then you define the milestones on the path of getting there. And then you make it clear, this is the third step, that you will charge by milestone. Don't have this big fee at the end of the project. This will drain your cash flow. It's not even funny how quickly it will drain it. Instead, make sure that you have small increment payments throughout the project so that cash keeps coming in and all sides are held accountable for delivering on the project. That is very, very important. You have an incentive to deliver on the milestones, and the client also has an incentive because they get the finished product sooner. When they know exactly that you want to complete the milestone as soon as possible, they are more eager to help you do that because then they can reap the benefits that you help them understand they will receive from that finished project. Milestones are very, very important, and I have to confess that for the first few years of my freelance career, I handled especially milestones way too loosely. And now lastly, as the fourth lesson I've learned from client onboarding, get a sign-off on everything. Straight from the beginning. Make sure that your client confirms in written form. You can send them a digital signature document, sign request or something like that, DocuSign. There are various tools you can use for that. Make it easy, but get a sign-off on the project structure, get the sign-off on the scope, on the budget, on the communication channels, on everything, so that your client is also understanding that when they have change requests later down the road in the project, they will actually cost money. It's something that I had myself, again, it's a hard lesson to learn yourself. Don't get stuck in endless revision rounds. And you don't get stuck when you make sure that the client knows you have, let's say, 2 revisions and the third one costs money. They be way more engaged during the project. Now, lesson number 2 that I learned from this painful real estate project is constant communication. This is something that I have to take ownership of myself. I did not communicate well during this project. Neither did my client, but I cannot blame everything on the client. I had made tons of mistakes and I want to help you avoid making those mistakes yourself. So that's why I'm sharing this in the video. And constant communication definitely was an issue for me back then. Now I know that with the processes in place, my clients get a weekly update on the progress. They are held in the loop constantly, and we set a scope for the week that is to come and the goals we want to achieve, the milestones we want to hit. And then by the end of the week, they get a review of the past week plus an outlook on the next week. And that ensures that not just the client knows always what is going on with the project, but also we can prepare them for, hey, by Thursday, we'll need this type of document from you. Or by Tuesday next week, you'll probably have a question from us saying, hey, we need ABC, can you send this over? You want to make sure that the communication flows and that the communication is as smooth as possible. And those weekly check-ins can be a simple email that you write, schedule like 20 minutes or something on Friday to send an email to the ongoing project owners. It is really, really important to have that communication in place, and your clients will thank you for that. And speaking of constant communication, make sure that your team is always in the loop. I've seen this myself in my own agency, and I've also seen this in other agencies, is that sometimes team members lack an understanding of what is actually happening in the project. They don't have all the information they need to make an educated decision that moves the project forward, and therefore the project gets delayed. Make sure that everybody in the team knows when they have a question, they can come to you or they can come to the project manager, get the question answered as soon as possible. You would be surprised, especially based on cultural differences, for example, how shy some people are when it comes to asking questions, or how insecure people are because they think asking a specific question makes them look dumb or makes them look like unqualified, and they are at fear of losing their position with you. Maybe they really like working with you and they don't want to risk that, and they'd rather sit out an issue than actively tackle it and fix it. So encouraging constant communication externally and internally is very, very important. This is a no-brainer, but it also falls into constant communication. Track your progress in a project management tool, and I don't care which tool it is. We are getting bombarded with ads for countless tools every single day. Make sure it is one that works for you and for your team. There's no right tool, there's no wrong tool, there's only the tool that works for you. But make sure everybody knows to track their progress. I'm not saying track the time. That's totally up to you. If you want to track the time of each team member, I don't do it. I just track the progress that they make. But you need to have an easy overview of where every single project that's going on is in its life cycle and how far you are from hitting the next milestone, or whether there are blocker tasks that prevent you from hitting the next milestone. You definitely want to make sure that you have a visual representation of the status of the project. And the third and final tip, probably the most important lesson I've learned myself during the time, is to collect the sign-off of your clients on the milestones. And we've spoken about milestones quite a bit, and now you see how important they really are. When you deliver on a milestone, send an agreement to the client that has them confirm the milestone has been delivered as required, and they have to sign it. That prevents you from getting stuck in endless revision rounds, because as soon as the client comes back and says, hey, I would like to change this, that, and the other thing, you can see if they already confirmed it as part of a milestone. And if they did, you can come back and saying, hey, Mr. Client, totally cool if you would like to change this. However, please be aware that you have already confirmed this as part of a milestone. So this is a paid change order. If you would like us to move forward, we would bill X amount of dollars, and we would have to extend the delivery of the entire project by X amount of weeks so that we can incorporate the change into the project. Let us know if that's cool with you and if you'd like to move forward with this. And this is a very polite way, but it's also a very straightforward way to communicate change orders and to prevent yourself from having to go through 15 revision rounds. And I've actually had this with a real estate client. At some point, this is literally a textbook example. What happens if you don't have milestones? At some point, the CEO came back and said, hey, I have this lady. She's looking at the visuals that you've created 6 months ago, and we would like to revisit this, that, and the other element on the website. Let us know how we can best do this. I would have been protected if I had them sign off on the milestones. It's a mistake I'll never make again, and I hope that you won't be ever in a similar situation than I was. And what this also does, and this is very, very important, the client understands the impact that their decisions make. It's not as easy for them to push you around, especially if you are just a freelancer or a solopreneur. Clients sometimes tend to think that they can do whatever they want in the project, and I'm not meaning this disrespectfully. It's just from their experience of dealing with contractors, and you want to make sure that you protect your time and that you protect the integrity of your work and also the quality of your work. You don't want to spread yourself thin just because a client starts demanding more and more and more and more. And therefore, you need to have this milestone structure in place, and you need to have this sign-off structure in place so that a client cannot boss you around, but you have something to refer to whenever there's a change request that was already confirmed. Then you have something to show them. You have something to say like, hey, you've already signed off on this. We can move forward, but this adds X amount of week to the project and to the budget. So these are 3 very important lessons that I've learned that have impacts on multiple levels on the projects and also on your communication with clients. Subscribe to the Cloudways channel and tap the bell if you want to see more content like this. We are ramping up the content production. My fellow Mavericks and I are looking forward to serving you with more video content. I'll see you in the next video.